Let's take a look at problem 17.9a, a really big earnings per share question. So Belmont Company reported net income of $3.2 million for its 2031 fiscal year. The company's tax rate is 25%, and the company had the following information related to its share capital. Looking at the required, we're always asked to do basic earnings per share first, and we already have some basic earnings per share info. You, of course, have this formula memorized. If you don't and you're taking an intermediate accounting class, you should. Net income minus preferred dividends divided by weighted average number of common shares outstanding. That is our formula for basic earnings per share, and we've just been given the net income. So let's sort of get this thing started. 3.2 million minus the preferred dividends divided by the number of shares, and let's read on. 2 million common shares were issued and outstanding for the entire year. So the weighted average number of shares outstanding is 2 million. That's easy. Again, future questions, we're going to have share issuances, stock buybacks. We're going to have to deal with the weighted average number of common shares changing. But here they've made it easy on us because you'll see the question's complicated enough. This will probably take 15 or 20 minutes. You can look at the timestamp in the video and see how accurate I was. But it's a substantial question even without having to wrestle with this. But future questions we will have to. Okay, so we're just missing preferred dividends, and look at that. The next bullet down talks about that. 100,000 non-cumulative convertible preferred shares issued and outstanding for the entire year. Company declared a $5 cash dividend. So, okay, we got 100,000 shares. I don't need the calculator for this, but I multiplied by 5 and got my $500,000 in preferred dividends. And I think we're there. All the other stuff, these are potentially dilutive securities. We've got 4 of them. We got preferred shares there. We've got Series A bonds, convertible bonds. We've got Series B convertible bonds, and we got some stock options. We're going to have to test these for their dilutive properties, but for basic earnings per share, they're just not relevant to our calculations. So I'll jump ahead and just do the basic earnings per share calculation. 3.2 mil minus 500,000 divided by 2 million. Can I do this in my head? You think I could do it in my head? I can't. I just realized I can't. Why did I even threaten to? 1.35. Let's go. I pulled it out of the fire there. It was rattling around in there somewhere. 1.35. Let's go. Okay, so our earnings per share is $1.35. Is this good or bad? We have no idea, right? We'd have to see the previous year. The next step, and sort of this is, I do these 2 in 1, well, really 3 in 1. Basically, we're trying to get to diluted earnings per share. And how do we do it? We look at each of these items, 1, 2, 3, 4, and see if they're dilutive and how dilutive are they compared to each other, and we rank them. So let's start with our convertible preferred shares. It says 100,000 non-cumulative convertible preferred shares issued and outstanding. The company declared and paid a $5 per share cash dividend on preferred shares. Each preferred share is convertible into 4 common shares. Okay, 100,000, if they all convert, that's going to be 400,000 new common shares. And you'll remember, is it dilutive for convertible shares? You just go, okay, well, how would it change our formula? And the answer is, our denominator is going up by 400,000. There's going to be 400,000 new shares, 100,000 times 4. But our numerator also goes up because we're not going to pay the dividend, which reduced our numerator by 500K. Well, our numerator goes up by the amount of that preferred dividend, 500K. So the math here, 500 divided by 400, it's 1.25. Is it dilutive? Well, 1.35 is the number of basic earnings per share, so it's under 1.35. It's 1.25. It looks dilutive to me. Let's continue. Now, there may be a little asterisk beside that. We will see how things go. Next up, 5 million of 4% convertible bonds issued and outstanding. Each $1,000 bond is convertible into 100 shares. Okay, so $5 million worth of bonds. They're $1,000 each, so that's 5,000 bonds. Each bond changes into 100 shares, so that's 500,000 new shares potentially. So our denominator change, if we were to convert all of those bonds, would be 500,000 new shares. Our numerator change, if they all converted, we'd have interest savings, right? That's the benefit here. 5 million times 0.04, $200,000 interest reduction, but we know that's not the after-tax amount. That's pre-tax. We got to take out the tax. The way you take out the tax is you go, okay, I'm saving $200,000 in pre-tax dollars, multiply by 1 minus the tax rate, 1 minus 25%. So we're going to multiply by 75%. It's not $75,000, it's $150,000. That is our net savings, right? We save $200,000, but that juices up our tax bill by $50,000, so we only save net $150,000. But that does increase our net income by $150,000. 150 over 500. Can I do this one in my head? 0.3, is it? 0.3? It's got to be 0.3. 150 divided by 500. 0.3. I am on it today, folks. I am on it. I'm going to screw it up. I just know it. I can't. You can't talk like that. You're jinxing yourself. You're talking bad things into existence when you're like, oh, everything's going so well today. And then, like, an anvil hits you on the head. Okay, well, this is dilutive, right? It's more dilutive than the convertible. Because it's lower. The lower it is, the more dilutive it will be. The convertible preferred share, I should have said. Next up, $2 million of 9% convertible bonds issued and outstanding. Each $1,000 bond converts into 20 shares. Okay, so $2 million worth of $1,000 bonds means there's 2,000 bonds out there, and they convert at rate of 20 to 1. So if I have 2,000 bonds, it means I could have up to 40,000 shares if everybody converted. So it's a plus 40 in our denominator. What is it to our numerator? Well, it's the interest savings, right? We're going to save 2 million times 9%, 180K. Oh yeah, it is 180. My calculator failed me. 2 million times 0.09. 180,000. We do the same thing, multiply by 1 minus the tax rate. I'm just going to multiply by 0.75 here. 180 times 0.75, 135,000. That's what our numerator will increase by. We have a significant savings here. 135 divided by 40,000, 3.375. This is anti-dilutive. So it means we're not going to use it in our calculations. And why is it anti-dilutive? It's above the basic earnings per share. Last one, the stock options. The question we answer on stock options are they in the money? Would a rational employee that has the stock option exercise the option? That's the question we need to answer. So it says 300,000 stock options issued to employees. And outstanding for the entire year. Each option allows the holder to purchase one share at an exercise price of $20. The average market price of the company's common shares was $25. Okay, so these are in the money options. These are absolutely dilutive. A reasonable person would exercise these options because you're making money. You're printing money for yourself as somebody holding a $20 option to exercise on something that's worth $25. Yes, these are absolutely in the money and therefore dilutive. And therefore, they are the most dilutive of anything on our list because the answer here is going to be 0. But let's do the numerator and denominator change for this one. So our numerator doesn't change, right? So it's going to be 0 over something, which is why it's a 0, which is why it's the most dilutive because stock options don't affect your net income or your preferred dividends. An exercise of stock options. But they do affect the number of common shares outstanding. If everybody converts 300,000 options and each one, there's going to be 300,000 new shares in the world. But we don't simply take that number because there's not only the new shares, the company gets a ton of new cash. And we make the assumption, it's a weird assumption, it does make sense, but if everybody converts and if we get a pile of new cash, the company's better off. What if they used all that cash to buy back stock? How many new shares would there be then? So there's going to be 300,000 new shares because of these options, right? If everybody exercises their option as they rationally should, we're going to get 300,000 times $20, their exercise, $6 million in cash. What if we use that $6 million in cash to get rid of, to buy back any shares that we could? Well, we would have to do it at the market. So divide by 25 means we can cancel, or we can buy back and put in our treasury $240,000 of buybacks. So net, we're up 60,000 shares, right? That's the sort of net effect of this. That's the number we use. Now, again, 0 divided by whatever number was in that denominator would have been 0, but there you go. 0 divided by 60,000 is 0. Okay, so we've got this figured. So we can ignore bond number 2 at this point. This bond is anti-dilutive. No matter what we do, it's going to be anti-dilutive. I got a cough. So now we rank them in most dilutive to least dilutive, and smallest number to biggest. Let me maybe change my pen color here. 1, 2, 3. Those are our most to least dilutives. And we just go up the ladder one at a time and apply each one at a time to our formula. So, okay. Here was our formula to calculate basic earnings per share. 3.2 million minus 500,000. That's 2.7 million in my numerator. In our denominator was 2 million. Oops, missed a 0. 2 million, and we did the math, and that's 1.35. So now we just use this, and we go, okay, well, if we are saying how do our stock options dilute, the numerator goes up by 0. Then maybe I'll do this different color. The numerator goes up by 0, and the denominator goes up by 60,000. We crunch the number again. 2.7 mil divided by 2060,000, and I'm at 1.31. So we ask ourselves, is this still dilutive, number 2, and is this still dilutive? And the answer is, yeah, number 2 and number 3, they're both still dilutive. So then we go on to number 2, and we go, okay, well, plus 150, and the denominator is plus 500. So let's crunch that number. 2.7, well, it's 2.85. And the denominator is 2.560. Do the math, and I get 1.113. And I say to myself, okay, so this is done. This one's done. I'm on to number 3. Is number 3 still dilutive? And the answer is not in this context. It is anti-dilutive. Now I'm at 1.113. If I were to convert those, they would become, the number would go up, and that makes them anti-dilutive, and therefore this, I stop now, I don't convert this one, I go, okay, this one's now anti-dilutive. My diluted earnings per share is 1.113, and on the face of my balance sheet, it's just going to be shown as $1.11 diluted EPS. That's my answer to the question. So my basic EPS, $1.35. My diluted EPS, $1.11. And one thing left to do. You know what you got to do. If you got through the end of this long problem, you got to hit one of those buttons on your way out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. The next video in our series is right up here. And if you want a supercut of all of the videos in this series, that's the one down below.